André Cholmondeley here with Make Weird Music, and I'm here with my dear friend Vernon Reid. Wow, good to
Yeah,
see you,
man.
man.
Andre, it's fantastic to see you.
You know, and we're here to talk about a bunch of things, but a new record, always exciting, and you know,
Yeah.
for me, saw Vernon play live just about 40 years ago. So to see this journey going to new places once again, Hoodoo Telemetry.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about um, why you're doing
About
this right now.
Hoodoo Telemetry. Yeah, it's a record that it's kind of encapsulates uh a certain range of emotions and a certain range of experiences. Um the record is, a lot of times you don't know what a record is until you've done it. And then you're doing individual parts and pieces and figuring out, oh, this song goes with this song goes with that. Hoodoo Telemetry is unique in that it's not all one thing. It's partly a reclamation of tracks that I made that I never got out there, right? Songs I wrote a while back, and that songs I believed in, and there was no context. There was no context. I didn't think, okay, that this was a living color thing. Um, and then I, in the beginning to create this thing, you know, I started to, I always wanted to do this. Didn't make it onto Yohimbe Brothers record. This didn't make it into a living color context, and so there's some of that. And then, you know, I went through just a personal, uh, a traumatic event, losing my my dear friend Greg Tate, the critic and writer, guitarist, band leader. He's co-founder of the Black Rock Coalition. He's like one of the first critics to write about me and Ronnie Drayton seriously. He wrote an article about us, and we were on the cover of Musician magazine. And we started to be friends from the first time we met. At the 930 Club. And so his passing on December 7th, 2021 was a seismic event, especially because he died on the first event that the Black Rock Coalition did was a party. It was just a party. It was 19 December 7th, 1985. So his passing on that same day, and on that day, Living Color, we were doing a song, Young Americans, and I'm Afraid of Americans. We did that because Mike Garson, who was Bowie's pianist and MD, we were doing he was doing a kind of a global tribute to Bowie. So on that same day in 2021, we were recording, and that was and Greg had passed that night. And uh and um so it took a turn. It
Yeah,
really took a turn. And even then, it was such a personally devastating thing. I wasn't thinking consciously, oh, I'm gonna make this record about Greg. I just sort of it shifted it shifted stuff. And in fact, I did there are three live in studio tracks. The Bronx Paradox, Politician, and Freedom Jazz Dance. And those are all played with a version of Burnt Sugar, the Arkestra Chamber.
Burnt Sugar. Yeah,
Yeah.
to nod to them. It was great to see that name in the credits and to see you know uh, Jared Nickerson and see some of these players
Yeah,
with you.
man. Yeah. Yeah, it's just an incredible amalgamation of talented musicians, and Greg Tate had taken, the conduct principles of conduction, guided improvisation that were developed by the trumpeter and composer Butch Morris, and he
Right.
adopted conduction into, that's the basis of the band Burnt Sugar. So
Right.
so Burnt Sugar could either do repertory music, do music in tribute to a particular composer, or it could do complete improvisation guided by gestures and things like that. So it's a very versatile band, and it's as um, unique. I think it's established itself, to be in the same league as an art ensemble of Chicago
Sure.
in its own way. Over time, and so many different incredible musicians have been a part of the Burnt Sugar idea. And
Absolutely.
um and it was a great honor to be, amongst. I saw its development. I've also been a guest conductor, using these conduction gestures, adopting the gestures that Greg adopted from Butch Morris.
Right.
And I recently had gotten Butch Morris's book about conduction a couple of years ago, to even get into some of the original gestures, and so on and so forth. And it's an evolving catalog of of gestures, if you will. So anyway, I did those three tracks live. A bunch of the other tracks, I've taken some older music and I've put new drums, new bass, new guitar, changed the vocals up, and and there's also music that's new, that's like, that I developed, using, use Ableton Live a lot,
Good.
and
Okay.
and so on and so forth. So yeah, so at the end of the day, my first dedication on the album is to Greg Tate.
Sure. And
Yeah.
justifiably so. I mean, you and I spoke quite a bit when he passed because wow, that impacted me as well.
Yeah.
Greg was one of those couple of reasons you grab the Village Voice every week. It's like, okay,
Oh yeah.
what does
Oh
Greg
yeah.
have? What's Nat Hentoff have to say? And who's at Irving Plaza and CB's? But Greg was a staple, and I encourage anyone who does not know his work, whether it's Flyboy and the Buttermilk or any of his writings, uh, check it out. He's incredible, and his music with Burnt Sugar. Um, well, I love that you touched on. You let us know that this record kind of covers some older material, some new material, some recontextualized stuff. Because listening to it, I heard a lot of the world of Vernon. I mean, I heard,
Oh yeah.
a lot of different things that you've gotten into. It's really a great record, also for people who don't know your various projects over the years, whether it's Yohimbe Brothers
Hmm.
or My Science Project or Mask or all the different things. Because I hear elements of all of those and then some.
Hmm.
Um, uh, Tell us a little bit about this new venture, this new label, because I noticed this record's coming out on LP, CD, and digital, and it's a new label.
His
What's the name
Mascot.
of the venture?
Mascot's been around. Mascot's been around. They acquired um the catalog of Favored Nations, which was Steve Vai's
Oh,
label.
I see.
And I did Known Unknown and Other True Self,
On that, yeah,
yeah. And on Favored Nations, I did Mistaken Identity, which is the beginning of this whole thing. I did that on 550.
right,
And then there was a record that never came out, which was This Little Room, which
yes.
is with the record that disappeared me at Sony, and yeah, so there's a lot of connective tissue between Hoodoo Telemetry and Mistaken Identity. And it horrified me when I realized that the two records, actually the names rhyme. I was actually kind of appalled
Oh
because that was
wow,
totally not deliberate.
right,
Uh, but there's a cast of characters like my longtime, colleague, friend, Scott Leon Gruenbaum,
Oh,
I haven't made a move, either in soundtracks or, I mean, Leon Gruenbaum has been the piano player. He became a central person in Burnt Sugar. He's all over the Memphis Blood records that I produced. He's such a remarkable musician and incredibly intuitive. I mean, wise, intelligence off the charts. I mean, he invented the Sam Chilean tip 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 chipi, and he also invented the misha. These kind of these instruments that have such intervallic, uh, like the way the instruments are organized are, like you have, it starts with having perfect pitch or having relative pitch. He's remarkable, and like legit piano player, legit traditional jazz guy, legit, like
all of it.
legit, I mean, seriously, yeah, all of it, from piano rolls to Bach. He's a one of a kind, and also a great singer and songwriter. So there's no way I would have made a record without him. Steve Jenkins, who has been a member of Mask, played bass. He put new bass. Like some of these things I played bass originally and said I ain't even put that out there. So and then Steve came in just like and just really transformed the songs. And you know uh Don McKenzie,
Yeah,
who had been part of the Yohimbe brothers in Mask, as well as DeAnthony Parks, who was also a Yohimbe brother member from back in the day.
sure.
um yeah, Chris Edelton, who's one of the alternate or one of the drummers of Burnt Sugar. Yeah, so it was very much I don't know, man. There was something about this that people. I worked a lot with people that know me and have known me a long time. The engineer, the mix engineer, Scotty Hard he was an engine. He mixed it. He was an engineer on Mistaken Identity. And it
Oh,
was
wow.
so wonderful to give him a call and say, hey, man, I've been doing this thing with Ivan Julian. And Ivan Julian, is iconic as a guitarist himself. He played with Richard Hell and the Voidoids
Hmm.
and then became like this kick ass engineer in his own right. And he was very, I've credited him as a co producer as well as engineer. Yeah.
Engineer. Well, yeah, it's great seeing a lot of old friends. DJ Logic, Ben Tyree is in there.
DJ Logic. But
Um,
yeah, 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 yeah,
Doug
yeah,
Wimbish shows up.
absolutely.
Um,
Don't let me
there's
so
a
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's a track. Well, what's people just need to listen to this record because I can go on and on with the labels, the words. and it's really a wonderful record because uh, it goes through a lot of different moods. There's what I call them, ballads. There's some quieter vocal things on it. There's
Yeah.
some kind of uh, found sound things. There's this
Oh yeah, 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 yeah,
Aldo
yeah, yeah,
Huxley.
yeah. Like good
Things of that
afternoon,
nature.
everyone. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. That's a wholly original, collaboration with the hip hop artist Nyronic,
right.
and it's based on this found sound vocal. This young man was in this tunnel in the subway, and the thing, he was unfailingly polite. He was asking for alms,
Hmm.
asking for help, but he was unfailingly polite in his delivery, that good afternoon, everyone.
Right.
Good afternoon, everyone. And recording him, I was struck by his intelligence, his articulateness, and his rage. His rage is just under the surface, and he never raises his voice.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. Does anyone here, does anyone that hasn't taken for granted what they have in their life, can you take, this thing, right? It's like the idea that you think that I'm not you, you or me.
Hmm.
I'm here because of circumstances that could happen to you, but you
Hmm.
take your life for granted. And he just delivers this in such a powerful way. And that was the basis for Nirvana to write his rhyme. And his rhyme is just he's both the person ignoring the houseless person, and he flips from being the person ignoring to also being the person asking.
No, beautiful, man. And I love that the statements that are on here are subtle and require a bit of thought, whether it's that piece or Brave New World with Aldous Huxley on it.
Aldous
And
Huxley, oh yeah.
um, and also politician. If people check out the lyrics of that. Let's talk about that for a minute because not only do you have these incredible bass players on the record, Steve Jenkins, the woefully underappreciated Jared Nickerson,
Mm,
and
yeah,
Doug Wimbish, but then you nod to an incredible bass player whose last band you were in,
yeah.
Jack Bruce. Talk a little bit about that and putting politician on there because that brought it
well
into.
well one of the things about this record, it's about how remarkable, um how remarkable my life has turned out. I've gotten to play with musical heroes. I mean, I've gotten to play with or record. I mean, I've gotten to record with George Clinton. That's the first record I bought with my own money, was Cosmic Slop. So how was it, you mean, in a way, my life is a sort of 20th century life, in the sense that, I remember the first time I heard Jumping Jack Flash, and then Mick Jagger entered the life of the band Living Color.
Mhm.
Like I remember, Sunshine of Your Love, the first time hearing it on AM radio. And if somebody said to me, you're gonna play with that guy, I would have been like, first of all, I wasn't thinking about being a musician when I heard this record. And then suddenly, it's like this Malcolm Gladwell type of thing. I was born in a certain year. I was born in the same year as Prince and Michael Jackson, you know?
Wow.
And then things arrange themselves. Like when I would hear Prince's music, I would go, "Oh, you heard Sly and the Family. You heard Family Affair the same time I heard Family Affair, or you heard Get Up, Get Involved. We heard those things the same time. You heard Machine Gun when I heard Machine Gun. You heard, Bohemian Rhapsody the same time. And and I would hear, oh, you're stacking the voices and the things he would do. I go, oh yeah, man, that's I would say, well, you heard Yes when I heard Yes. And you and those influences I would hear in his music, not as direct things he would do, but just him making reference to the things that forged his aesthetic, because those things in are totally different, not making huge hits all the time, but it's in the same way those things affected what I was thinking about in music. And then, weirdly enough, I met him, like, so there's this weird, incredible, phenomenal thing. It's weird to hear "Oh Superman" and then to meet Laurie Anderson. That's like weird, so there's a weirding. There's
Yeah,
a weird, that that the world, and also to have been part of a world that has also vanished. There's a world that created me and a generation of musicians that has vanished, like the world of commerce, the 48th Street thing. Like 48th Street doesn't exist anymore. you
right,
know I the inspiration for Vivid, that was the ecology of clubs in New York in the early 1980s. You
yeah,
know, that also, I mean, we wound up playing at CBGB's. We became what we became at CBGB's, which also is how Talking Heads became what they became. Then I loved, Fear Music. I covered, Memories Can't Wait. And then when there was a tribute to Bernie Worrell, Jerry Harrison sat in with us playing Memories Can't Wait in a tribute to Bernie Worrell, who played on the first record I bought with my own money. And
full
these
circle.
kind of layered things. So politician, to get back to the point, uh, off of my rabbit hole, politician was like the other big riff tune that I love of Cream.
Right,
Sunshine of Your Love, White Room, Politician.
yeah,
And Politician is evergreen. Power corrupts and absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. Hey, baby, get into my big black car.
it's classic.
And it's completely bipartisan. I support the left, though I'm leaning to the right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's
And so Politician is something, it's a song I believe in, but also it is my own tribute to someone I had just the grace, the great blessing to know. Was just to meet him and his family, and it's a tremendous thing. I love Jack Bruce. He was a real one, as they say. He was a real one.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, people it's dizzying to keep up with the various things that you're involved in. And again, those who've missed Spectrum Road, go do some research. Check out that record. Check out some YouTubes of Vernon in this incredible band. Actually, Vernon, Jack Bruce, John Medeski, and Cindy
Cindy
Blackman
Blackmore.
Santana
Yeah,
on
yeah,
drums. Amazing band.
yeah,
Now, a few things come to mind also. One of the things that's always fascinating talking music with you is that your music seems to have no limit on the timeline of influence. In other words, you talk to a lot of artists and you realize, wow, they really only are referencing the stuff from their teenage years and onwards. It's a very natural thing. And I love that you're always talking about and referencing music all the way back to the beginning of music, really.
yeah.
And you hear this on this record. There's some stuff that's almost like 1930s and 40s jazz.
Oh, 1904. Oh, that's it. You mean you're talking about My Little Zulu Babe?
My Little Zulu Babe, sung by Williams and Walker. Down in the Africa, among the jungle and the bear, oh, there lives a Zulu babe close by the Nile, and my name is Lee. And the wedding will be in that Zulu town. What the king and the queen will celebrate of this song they got
Because My Little Zulu Babe Also nods to, you talked about playing with so many contemporaries and collaborations. It's also around now the 40th anniversary of Smash and Scatteration, which is a record
Ah,
that Vernon did with Bill Frisell. Again, people should search for that because I think it's been deleted, but you can find. But I haven't heard you play banjo so too often, and talk about that a little bit. The banjo, the 1904.
in the packaging of Mistaken Identity, I have a picture of Bert Williams. And if you opened up the CD packaging, you'd see this outlandish, here's this brother in blackface with a top hat, and he's dressed as a rooster. He's a rooster in a tuxedo, and it's
Yeah,
this fascinating. It's this surreal. It's really a surreal image,
yeah,
and so jumping to Hoodoo Telemetry, all of a lot of music is now in the public domain, right? It's over 100 years that it's been around. And he had so many great tunes because he had to work inside of segregation. And he was so sly with some of the wording and some of the lyrics and things.
uh-huh.
And My Little Zulu Babe is like it's it's about the notion of Africa. And that's something that is, aesthetically, I did some multimedia stuff, and I did this thing called Artificial Africa. And the whole idea is that, Africa is a country of the mind. And it's a very real place with with thousands of cultures and microcultures. But, there's also the idea of an overriding sense of what Africa is, when Africa is everything. It's all these different things. And here's a person in the diaspora fetishizing, getting an authentic African woman to be his bride. And it's also a lovely melody. And it's also about these weird false ideas, these notions. And it has a sort of toxic charm to it, and
Yeah.
but it's originally a piano piece. These things, it was Bert Williams and George Walker. They, because it was Bert Williams before George Walker passed on. This was done in 1904, and now technology exists now that allows you to take music that's encoded, into a mono or stereo file, and you can get the individual stems. You can get the individual tracks
It's amazing.
out.
Yeah.
It's insane. The implications of that are are incredible, and I've used it in a couple of instances to retrieve original vocals, to retrieve parts. I did that with Dying to Live as well, because I didn't have the multi-tracks,
Wow.
But yeah, but with My Little Zulu Babe, I was able to get a super clean Bert Williams vocals, like with no artifacts. I mean, it's like a wire recording,
Right.
but I was able to get George Walker and Bert Williams vocals with no artifacts. And then the challenge was to take the piano parts and move those from the piano to the acoustic guitar. So originally I did it as because also the way they did music back then, their starts and stops, you know what I mean? And pauses
Yeah.
in the narrative.
Okay.
And so to keep a flow and keep the music in time with the vocals, um, you know, that was a kind of a challenge, but I was able to do it with the, acoustic, and then I thought, oh, just for the heck of it, let me put a layer of banjo on top of it, and then it just kind of came to life in another, because originally I was just going to have the acoustic guitar and the vocal, and I literally was going to Super Giraffe Sound. I thought I'm just going to bring my banjo with me and see what happens. And then it just kind of came to life in a different kind of way.
That's fantastic. And of course, the banjo, tying it back to Africa and African instruments. There's a
Absolutely.
bunch of layers. Well, that's beautiful, man. What a beautiful story. And the fact that AI and technology, interfacing with it.
That's a whole other topic.
Say 30 seconds about the song or not, because I think that's
Or
incredible.
not. Yeah.
Micah Gaugh, wow.
Micah
Micah.
Gaff. Micah
Oh,
Gaff.
sorry, Micah Gaugh.
Yeah, Micah Gaff. And Micah was a member of Bert. He's Texan, like Ornette Coleman,
Mhm.
and he's just a unique individual. He's like, when I met Micah, I was like, dude, you want some next. Just his persona, just the way he reminded
Next
me
level.
of Alphonia Timms, and it's the first time I've ever connected the two of them. Literally, Alphonia Timms, who was a member of Oliver Lake's band Jump Up. Sadly, he had passed of an enlarged heart condition, and at his funeral, I was in the same pew as Ornette. And Ornette went to the funeral because he knew a kindred spirit, and Micah is very much a kindred, inside of that. And it's kind of a co-write. I think originally I might have been trying to do it for a soundtrack, but it's very it's a tribute to all those it's a tribute to Blood, it's a
Sure.
tribute to Ornette, you
Ornette.
know. It's a tribute to Don Cherry, I mean, the science, and really kind of out of the science fiction era
Mhm.
of Ornette Coleman, and that had such an impact on me, and such a, he just let me know that there was another, he's a composer that said there's another layer, there's another thing, there's another reality, there's another thing, there's another way to hear. And
Yeah.
that's pretty much the idea, in the collaboration with me and Micah, and then Doug kind of came in and thumped that, and really he just grounded the piece, and really is very subtle. It's fantastic. This thing about Doug is that he's fantastic. That he's just he can be bombastic, and or he can just buckle down,
Buckle
and
down.
and
Yeah.
and he just did I mean, a incredible job with the music. And he picked up on these subtleties, and no, I loved his contribution to it. It was lovely of him to do it, and
Yeah, he gets
again, that, yeah, because this record is about all of in a way, it's about all these different modalities, all these the overlapping, having Aldous Huxley, Aldous Huxley is at the beginning of Leave It Alone. His is the voice that introduces Leave It
right.
Alone, on Stain. And then, that
Yeah.
lecture, he gave this lecture. That lecture was like in the 50s or something. And he talks about, now all we do is talk about oligarchs. And he warned about the oligarchy that and
Always.
always willing. He's I mean, it's shocking, he- you know, that he addressed what we're living in,
Right.
um, almost like some kind of prophecy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kind of a secular prophecy, and the idea of people learning to love, learning to love their oppression, learning to, it's so it's, this record's about a lot of things.